Hey, I'm Fireball Tim, and welcome to the first annual World Class Automotive Film and Arts Festival. Please welcome to the stage director Paul Crowder and screenwriter Mark Monroe. Thank you, gentlemen. Welcome. Welcome. Go ahead and take these two chairs over here.
Like being in Men in Black.
You can kind of disappear in them. Wow, I almost don't know what to say. You know, that is a tremendous feat. You know, where do you begin with something like that? I'm going to let you guys, your heads, just don't hurt yourself. I'm envious you got to meet all these guys and get that firsthand story. Give us a sense of what that was like, you know, to know that you were going to do that, and then how that evolved.
Well, that's the most difficult part, is the fact that it's such a huge story. It's like, what do you tell? There's a billion ways, you know, 1,000 ways you can tell the story, because there's so many stories. So that's the most difficult part, and that's really part that Mark had to really wrestle with.
Right.
But just embarking on it, you know, I mean, I grew up watching the sport, and I was a big fan growing up, and I had two roommates who were big fans of the sport, and we used to live in an apartment together and watch every Sunday, and I was a big Nigel Mansell fan, and they were Nelson Piquet fans, and we were redecorating the apartment one day, and Mike had just repainted his bedroom, and I went into his bedroom and put Mansell and put paint all over his room, and then he came into my bedroom and put Piquet all over my bedroom. And then one of them became a journalist, another one became a producer, and the journalist, Jonathan, he said, hey, I've got this idea about film. I think we could do it this way, and Michael took it to Michael came to me, and we ended up making this film together. And the key factor was getting Bernie Eccleston. You know, without Bernie's support, we would never have been able to make this film, and that was the moment that when we got him on board, everything sort of opened up.
Yeah. Everyone answered their phone.
Yeah. Mark, I mean, how do you begin with a script like this? Because it's not a normal feature. You know, you have a lot of interviews, and you can't necessarily anticipate what a lot of these guys are going to say.
No, I mean, I'm from Oklahoma. I did not grow up watching Formula One, you know, every other weekend, and so for me, I think that was, you're right, I feel very lucky I got to have a role in this, because in one weekend, I got to meet like every living champion. It was like being thrown into the fire. Went to Bahrain, this incredible race, and to be thrust into that world and get a sense of it one-on-one. You know, talking to these guys, it was quite an education, and it really made me fall in love with trying to, you know, do the best I could for the film.
Yeah, Bernie said, you know, hey, look, first race of the season, it's 60th anniversary, you've got to be there, everyone's going to be there, we're bringing everyone in.
Right.
So we basically went with a pinch in our pocket and a camera crew, Mark and I, and we just hit every famous race driver we could find. We said, hey guys,
we stayed in the same hotel.
Yeah. And it turned out we got hosed on our hotel, so we had to book the most expensive hotel, and it happened to be where they were all staying. So the Nigel Mansell interview, Emerson Fittipaldi, you know, we found Emerson in the paddock. Hey Emerson, we're doing this film, do you want to do it? And like, oh yes, where are you staying? We're staying, come to my room, you can do it in my room. Okay, we could actually do 3 in my room, we'll do it in my room, come to my room. And that's how it happened, and it was incredible, you know, to sit there with Emerson Fittipaldi, having watched him your whole life, you know, and to have him tell you these stories and remembering the moments you've seen.
Sure.
And all the, I mean, it was just, you know, it was hard not to be that, like, uber-drooling idiot fan.
Sure. Totally cool. Sure.
You know, you just,
but that idiot fan has got what got you to that place.
Yeah, absolutely. No, but he really responded to the fact, that knowledge. He really responded to the amount of work that Mark had done in his research, and you know, Emerson came out and said, "Hey, do you want to make a film about me?"
Right. Someone had a question?
Fitting
Oh, no,
that.
just a big thumbs up.
Yes, exactly.
So you had mentioned that there was a previous script before you got on board.
It was a previous treatment. It wasn't
Treatment, okay.
a script. These guys, well, he told the story. These guys were roommates, young guys who were big fans, and they had written a treatment years and years ago. And I think kind of just, everyone got busy with life and put it on the side, and Jonathan became a journalist in the sport, and Paul and Mike moved to the U.S., and so it just resurfaced after a while.
Paul, how do you approach a project like this when there's so much tense danger, a lot of death, unfortunately, but be able to mold it into something inspirational?
Well, the key is to not, I felt, because we're dealing with so many tragic stories, and so many stories that are obviously so very personal to the people who live them, and it's a very delicate, sensitive subject matter.
Right.
You have to be very careful how you attack everything, what you say. It's almost impossible to say the right thing. There's always somebody that says, well, I wish he hadn't said he was going too fast. There's many reasons why you can upset people. So it's a very, very difficult thing. The thing is to give it its moment and what the outcomes were. Jackie Stewart refusing to, well, not refusing, but deciding to not race his 100th Grand Prix in his life, to finish his career. What an incredible career. That speaks volumes.
Sure.
That was so powerful. That had such a repercussive, that took it to the next level where they were going to take safety. And so therefore, you're really treating Severne's death with the impact it had on the sport. And all of them, we tried to make sure, there were some fabulous drivers that we lost over the years that we don't talk about and should have talked about. It becomes a very sad story. There was a moment where we were like, oh my God, how are we going to get out of this? Because it was such a devastating, people kept up. But that's what it was like. I don't know, many of you watched the sport growing up. For me, it was devastating. It was constant. And you'd watch it and be like, oh, another one. And then you're watching it next week.
When was the film completed?
We finished it around Austin last year. We were just putting the final touches. Actually, I recorded Michael Fassbender last December. And this is actually, you guys saw the very first time this has ever been seen, completed by
We're very grateful that you guys decided to premiere it here.
Yeah, we were psyched.
Very happy.
Yeah, big fan. I think Jim Hancock, who was involved with producing the Patrick Dempsey show, he's very instrumental in putting us together with everybody involved with this.
And you had something to do with that film.
Yeah, I actually edited the Dempsey piece as well, one of the editors on that. Yeah, as I finished that, I worked on the Sound City movie with Mark and I. We did that with Dave Grohl last year. And as I was coming to the end of that, the Patrick Dempsey thing came up. And while we vowed never to do television again, I certainly did. I couldn't really resist the pull of the draw, the normal racing. I was kind of.
So what's the goal now? What is it that you guys want to achieve with the finished product here now?
We want everybody to see it. You need to tell your friends, tweet the hell about it, tell everybody how.
Everybody get on your phones right now.
Yeah, when you see something about Rush, say Rush is great, but the real thing's better. No Australian accents here.
I think the great thing about it is, as a late comer to the sport, essentially, is that it's like evidence. It's like you get to see these guys. Some of this footage has not been seen before.
Sure.
And even the stuff that has been seen before, to see it in this way with these guys talking about it, it's like the evidence of what happened. I really admire, looking back in history and seeing the birth of something like
Yeah,
this.
this is neat, especially because a lot of documentaries will focus on a point in time. The 50s era, certain different eras. You guys have taken us through an entire evolution from the very beginning to where we are, and that's very challenging.
That's the one thing that's the most attractive thing about the film when we started talking about it is evolution. It is human progress. It is for whatever purpose, whether it's speed and then later becomes safety. It's us thinking about problems and doing something about it, and maybe taking a misstep here and taking a step back, but then finding the new way.
Right.
And that's what Formula One is, and that's what I think is so exciting about it.
Absolutely. We're going to jump into the audience and see if there's any questions out there. You guys Have a question? Okay, we got one. Hold on.
No, I'm asking actually as a race medical guy, and I wanted to know what your impression was of Sid Watkins. How do you think he commanded the respect that he did and changed the culture of Formula One?
I don't usually do impressions.
I feel like, Forrest Gump or something, because I got to, go to Scotland, go to his home and visit with him for 2 days, and that's what it was like. It was like I was on vacation for 2 days in the company of this extremely charismatic and wise guy who was telling me everything he knew about Formula One. And I think his impact on the sport, I think it's impossible to measure because all these guys loved this guy. They loved this guy. And
I think it was the respect that he was able to generate very early on with his inclusion into the sport with these drivers, that he could communicate them on completely on their level. And because he generated that respect and everybody just drew to him, and Mark had the wonderful, got to interview him and had that connection and
well, I mean, one thing that you feel is that, this guy was the smartest guy in any room, it felt like, talking to him. And I think drivers felt like he's the best at what he does, and we're trying to be the best at what we do. And that's kind of, there's a mutual respect that forms there. And then, when the boss, that's the one guy he listens to, the doctor, that speaks volumes too. Bernie Eccleston didn't just stumble into where he is. He's a very smart guy. So, I don't know. I just think it's hard to measure how much he meant to the sport.
We say it in the film, but I think anyone will tell you Formula One wouldn't be where it is right now without Dr. Sid Watkins. It's very sad that we've lost him, but he was an amazing man.
You guys have shared an experience in history, but you also have had a tremendous individual experience. Being able to go and talk with these guys. I mean, this is a journey of a lifetime for anybody, any screenwriter, director, anybody who works in the film industry.
I mean, just in anything. But I mean, we got to travel all over the world to visit. I mean, we went everywhere to get everybody.
Right.
To Abu Dhabi, to Bahrain.
We're in the Lotus garage with the car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's right there.
Yeah.
It's the same garage. You look at the tools, and you're like, wow. It was
we
amazing.
had those. We sat and interviewed those guys, the mechanics, that were the mechanics for Surveyor and Jackie Stewart in the heyday. So it really, I mean, it was an unbelievable experience. And to be a fan, to get to do it, I mean, got paid to do it. I would have paid anyone.
Yes, sir.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you very
The
much.
best motor racing film. I lived in Britain for 25 years and went to most of the Grand Prix. I have never seen anything on film quite like yours. So congratulations. Turn the sound down ever so slightly. But otherwise, it's magnificent.
I second what the gentleman said. You mentioned that you spent 2 days with Sid Watkins, and you got to interview all these other people. You probably have a lot of outtakes. Please don't throw them away.
Don't worry. Don't worry.
Make them available either as another movie, sequel, whatever.
Whatever we can do for DVD extras, we're certainly going to include a lot of that stuff. I'm going to put a lot of the I've got some, I mean, this film, we started editing in 2010. I had my first cut of this film in 2011. We screened in 2012. It's 2013, and it's probably going to be on the shelves in 2014. That's how long these things take to happen. But a lot of the stuff is on the cutting room floor. I'm going to make them available on Vimeo, so find me on Vimeo, find me on Twitter, and I'll give you links for that stuff once the film's out. I'm going to let you see all the bits we've left behind.
I will say that
we could have made 20 films.
Yeah, I was going to say, we were literally saying for months on end, we should just make 3 films out of all these interviews because we have so much.
And the sequel would be 2.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
The numbers
got that worked out.
It's very easy.
Anyone's got any money? I heard some guy buying $250,000 for a car. We'll do 2. Give us.
So Mark, Are you now an F1 fan?
I am kind of. It's hard not to be. I mean, I'm not, religious in any sense, but I do pay attention to the standings now, and I do catch the highlights, and I like to go on the site and watch the POV lap. I'm a pretty big fan. So yeah.
You look pretty natural in that cool chair.
How much will we go now?
I've been following Formula One since 1958, 57, 58, and 58 was a horrible year. They lost about 6 drivers. But you have some of the most amazing clips. I've never seen anything like this. You've got things that not even wide world of sport has. The question I have is, where did you get all this stuff? And how did you get started in finding it?
We had some great research people involved with this. A couple of guys came through with some insane, oh, I've got this DVD that someone sent me that they recorded off their TV. We have a lot of these, but John Tully was one of the big filmographers and a company, a father in France. Those were our 2 main sources, plus the BBC, and then YouTube's a fabulous place to go find stuff and then find out who owns, then it's a research job. But our biggest gold mine was when the people from Seneca Lodge at Watkins Glen gave us this Super 8 footage of everybody hanging out in the bar. And we've got, about an hour and a half of that footage that we could have used. And it's just them dancing and drinking. There's lots of this.
It was awesome.
Tons of that.
That was a great
lots
day.
Lots of James
That
Hunt
came
getting
in.
kissed and stuff.
I would assume it's a lot of individual pieces. The guys are out there with their teams and they all had cameras. And,
Well, exactly.
Or some, yeah.
Well, the accent, those of you who were been fans in the early days and went to the races in England, you just walk in the paddock, you can go and walk up through the cars. The ALMS still does it now where you have the paddock walk and you can actually see the drivers. But on Formula One, you never do that today. But back in the day, you could go up to Jack Graham and Jim Clark and, hey, how's it going? Good luck with the race today. And just walk through and meet all these people. We used to climb fences to get into Silverstone to watch the races. It was easy. Oh, my dad's over here, he knows Bernie. Thanks. And you just walk in. There was no one stopped you.
Nowadays, there's billions of hours of footage.
There is. So what was, like the Silverstone crash, for instance, that race, that crash has been seen with John Tully's footage and with the father's footage. You've only ever seen them contained with the 5 different camera crews that were there that day. But what we've been able to do in this film is put all those camera angles together into one event. So you're seeing it from everywhere. To see the wives' reaction to their husbands driving out there when they're crashing, as it comes through the straight of pit.
Yeah.
That's amazing, powerful footage. How a cameraman points this way when 11 cars are crashing behind him and just stays and does that, that footage is just unbelievable. And that's what we were able to achieve, was to put all this together in a way that hasn't been seen before. So even though you may be familiar with some of the footage, it feels fresh.
Yeah, it's a monster achievement of continuity. Did you have to go through situations where, I know that in film you have to be concerned about right to left, left to right, and a lot of those things as you're directing in a normal feature. But when you're putting something like this together, did you have to have issues with, because all the cars have numbers, you can't just flop scenes,
exactly.
A lot of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Can't start applying visual effects,
We talk constantly about trying to, not every event is covered, but to try to make sure that anything we were illustrating was from the period as close as we possibly could. That was a big concern of ours.
There's a shot in there where we see, it's not Schechter's car, but he's saying it's the number 4 car, Schechter's in the number 3 car. But he's saying Jody Schechter, but there was no shot of Schechter's car doing that. So, little cheats here and there.
We won't tell.
No, don't tell anyone.
But that'll be in the DVD behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right? Okay, anyone else? No, let's give them a big round of applause. Thank you so much, Dylan.